In accordance with the Openness of Local Bodies Regulations 2014, this meeting is being live streamed and may otherwise be recorded, filmed or communicated on other media platforms. The reading of this meeting will be made available on the Council's YouTube channel shortly after the meeting. Both councillors and officers in attendance are reminded to make full use of and to speak clearly into the microphones available at all times. A reminder that mobile phones should be turned off or put on silent mode. Those present at the meeting should refrain from taking telephone calls. A polite reminder that those members of the public in attendance must not act in a disorderly or disruptive manner or otherwise interfere with the council's proper conduct of its business.
In the national period of news, I was surprised at that happening last night.
Can we have apologies for absence, please?
Thank you, Worship. Apologies received from Councillors Bentley, Linda Broadley, Frank Broadley, Eaton, Helen Lloydall, David Lloydall, Sharon Morris and Richard Morris.
Declarations of interest, if any? No? Okay.
Minutes of the previous meeting.
And the minutes of the previous meeting. Have we got any comments or objections?
Councillor Jordan.
Councillor Charlesworth.
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. It's in relation to the motion that I put down at the last council meeting regarding pollution in rivers. And I thank officers for the hard work of writing to all those concerned. And to those that replied, I noticed a couple didn't, unfortunately, but some of the replies were quite positive. The NFU one was quite enlightening, and I think I may well take up the opportunity to do a visit to a local farm to see how things are worked out. But again, I'd like to thank officers and the people that replied. Thank you.
Okay, is everybody happy that I sign the record? Action list arising from the previous minutes. We got any comments? Comments? We'll move on then. Are there any motions or notice?
None received, Your Worship.
Okay. Any petitions, deputations, questions?
Again, none received, Your Worship.
The Mayor's announcement. It's been quite a busy few months, as you can see. And I just would like to say I was a little bit disappointed that people didn't turn up at the proclamation. I know there was holidays, I know there was sickness, I know it was short notice, but it would have been nice just to see a few more people supporting us. But apart from that, that's it. Anything you need to make, Jeff? No, it's fine. Any comments on the Mayor's engagements? No? Okay, so we'll go to the Leader's Statement, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. We appear to be in a period of calm. Well, at least we were until Friday. There is no doubt that the financial situation in this country is going to have a major impact, not only on us all, but both personally, but also in this capacity as councillor. There is no doubt about that. Inflation of itself is a problem. The biggest problem with inflation actually is the fact that it's uneven. If inflation, everything went up 10% over time, actually that's straightforward. It's not. It's fuel goes up 20%, that has a knock-on effect on everything else going up 5, 10, 15, whatever. And that's part of the problem. You can't simply put up wages. And of course your baseline for wages and for what you spend also changes. In terms of this council, as we'll see later on, the MTFS was based originally on 2% salary increase. If we get sound horrible, if we get away, I don't mean it in those terms. If it is only 10%, we will have done well. As equally, we may well lose staff because frankly they may not be able to afford only a 10% rise and may need to look for jobs elsewhere, which has a long-term impact. And what actually happens is, if we stop being able to recruit staff, the only thing a council can do is a job evaluation and then put the wages up even more than 10%. And actually about 12 years ago, Councillor Swift from the Tories and I sat through several sessions of a job review to do precisely that. And my guess would be in a couple of years' time, once inflation settled a little, we will have to do the same to actually put ourselves in a position where we are able to recruit. And that will mean that either we're going to have to raise significant more money, or we're going to have to cut services, or, and this is a problem, Michael Gove at the Local Government Association conference stood up and said he would make sure we had at least a 2-year settlement. Unfortunately, he was sacked the following Monday, if I remember rightly. And whilst what is coming out from central government is that next year's funding settlement is likely to be the same. The problem, then you start worrying about words. The last funding settlement had something like £600,000 worth of additional grant. That has not been mentioned. The new homes bonus is another legacy payment which has not been mentioned. And they make a significant difference to us. If you look at something like 6 million, 600,000 is 10% of your budget. So not only is wages going up by 10%, which you didn't plan for, your income could drop by 10% as well, unless they actually keep those in. So there is significant additional work, which we as a council will have to do. Clarity from central government would be nice. They are talking about the Office of Budget Responsibilities report coming out at the end of November, or at least their way of paying for the tax cuts that they announced. Or they're going to say that actually we're projecting 3% growth and therefore we don't need to pay for the tax cuts. There may be some flying pink things around if that's what they think. The problem is that it puts us in a completely complex situation in terms of trying to make sense of where the world's going. But we are required to. You have to remember we are not allowed to borrow. We may fudge to some degree, but in the end we have to have a balanced budget. Yes, you can use reserves, but you can only use them once. So there is challenges to be had. There are challenges to our residents. One of the things that the government, certainly through COVID, did was put money around for hardship. There is some money around for hardship now, mainly controlled, if I remember rightly, by county. This council will be making and bringing forward our response to that in November. Finding pots of reserve which you cannot spend on revenue, but you may be able to spend on emergency support, is something we're looking at. And we bring forward plans, hopefully in November, to be able to say, this is our response. We are listening to our residents. We are doing what is required. So beyond saying how wonderfully secure and straightforward the world is, it isn't. So for once, we have work to be done. there are likely to be more meetings between now and the setting of the council budget, not least of all because once the settlement is known, we may have to have additional meetings to work on what we do. We shall have to wait and see. So with that, I'm happy to take questions.
Any questions? Okay, fine. So we move on to agenda 10, the medium-term financial strategy. And I believe Tracy's do this for us. Thank you.
Thank you. So this report presents the draft medium-term financial strategy this evening for approval. The strategy sets out the 5-year assessment of the council's general fund resources and the resultant budget gaps over that 5-year period. It also sets out the current position of the housing revenue account and recognises that there is more standalone work needed in this area in respect of the housing revenue account and the housing revenue account business plan. The strategy tells the story, or the financial story, of Oakham and Wigston Borough Council, how the council will manage its finances in the context of risk that it faces, and how it will deliver savings to reduce or meet the budget gaps through a sustainability plan. And this sustainability plan will become a living document that is refined by members at least annually and monitored at least quarterly. The strategy has been developed based on member feedback received to date and would welcome any feedback on this document. Thank you.
Okay.
You finished, Tracy? Yeah.
Okay.
So, yes, so
Councillor Charlesworth, sorry.
Thank you, Your Worship. I moved this last night at PFD. I'm happy to move it again. The one thing we like in local government is certainty. That's something we certainly haven't got at the moment. With the announcements last Friday, it's become a scary world for local government. The leader's right. More meetings will be required because we need to be light on our feet and we need to be flexible. Because the landscape's changing all the time and we've got to adjust with it. County described their situation last week as frightening. I wouldn't say it's frightening here, but it's certainly a cause for concern for every local authority. And, you know, a bit tongue-in-cheek, perhaps we should be buying the Euro Millions ticket because £171 million would solve all our problems. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Boyce?
Thank you, Worship. On a nitpicking point, but I'll do it anyway. Page 61, modular housing you mentioned. Do we have any progress? And apart from that, basically pointed out that it's a live document. Absolutely. But it is a long document and it needs to be long as a background document. But can the sustainability plan, which is basically the executive summary, can that come forward as an executive summary? So we actually have 3 pages of assumptions, numbers, and potential outcomes that we can actually go through. The other document is far too long to do that.
Thank you.
If I may respond to the point about the document being long. So this is a 5-year strategy, and I think I'd remind members of that. So it will take us over the next 5 years. We won't be updating the strategy as such on a regular basis, but what we will be updating is the medium-term financial plan. So that is the plan that sits alongside the budget, and it will be rolling, so it will be forward every 5 years. And I'll take that feedback on the council boards, and as part of that, we will produce an executive summary that goes alongside the financial plan at every budget setting period. If I can invite my colleague Adrian Thorpe just to say a few words on the modular housing scheme.
Yes, we do have some progress in terms of that scheme in that we have done a survey of the site. There's a number of different priorities in the economic regeneration team at the moment. That is certainly one of them. We'll be moving it forward as fast as we can.
Have a pause.
with all due respect, can you give a date, some indication of timescale? I am pushing a little, I do it.
Yes, I'd like to think that we'll be in a position to start giving it.
2 minutes too.
And we all.
Can we just hold on a moment before we go to councillor Hack? Apparently the microphone's not working, so just hold on a moment, please. And then we'll go to councillor Hack. Okay. 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 Councillor Hack.
Thank you, Worship. On page 52, business rates, it says that we get to keep very little of business rates. Is there a review coming up by the government, or can we ask for one? How the funding is divided between us and the government?
Thank you, Your Worship. So, in respect of business rates, the business rate system has been long overdue for resetting, and that business rate system essentially is set up to incentivise local authorities to grow their local economies, and if those local authorities achieve growth, they get to keep a higher proportion of business rates that would otherwise have gone through the retention system and been redistributed to central government and others. The consequence of the out-of-date system is that for authorities like ourselves that are dense and have low propensity to grow, it means that in contrast to authorities that have high opportunities to grow, they've obviously been able to achieve higher levels of business rates. What that means is that the funding system is holding us back. The fundamental reform of the funding system is holding us back. And so, yes, there is a very clear role, I feel, in terms of lobbying central government to look at that reform and bring that reform forward. The latest that I'm hearing on the ground is that reform is actually unlikely to be until 2025-26, which means we've got another good couple of years of potentially living in this out-of-date funding system.
Samia?
Worship, can I just come back on that? Does that mean that in terms of new home bonuses and the council tax business rates, we lose out because we're a small council? So can we lobby the central government on both of those points? And that's where I'm going to help us, so we can have maybe a slightly bigger proportion of that money? Yes.
Anybody else wish to?
Use your mic.
Anybody else wish to? Councillor Bolton.
Thank you, Mrs. Mayor. Yes, if we change to page 38, 6.2, housing revenue account, we notice there that the government is now thinking about capping housing rents. We don't know what the cap's going to be yet. We're still working on that. There's a consultation at the moment. If you remember, a few years back, they actually reduced the rent people charge for a number of years. This brings a certain amount of uncertainty because we never know what we're going to do. I wish to leave it alone. We set the business plan, and suddenly they changed the rules when we set the business plan. So we've got to do the business plan again. So capping social housing rents, depends how we end up, could be benefit to our residents, or it could be hindrance to them. Depends how they pitch it. Because we rely on the money coming in to improve the properties. When it doesn't come in, we can't improve the properties. So it's a double-edged sword. So watch this space for that. I think it may well come at the next services meeting what the final figure is going to be for social housing rents for this year.
Okay. Any more questions? No. So Councillor Charlesworth moved this. Can we have a seconder, please?
Councillor Boyce.
Okay. So it has been moved by Councillor Charlesworth and seconded by Councillor Boyce that the recommendations be approved. All those in favour?
Unanimous.
Unanimous. Okay, thank you. We move on now to agenda 11, maximising the council's income. And that is Tracy, I believe.
Thank you, Your Worship. So members, this report this evening is to present the draft corporate charging policy so that it may be approved. The second purpose of the report is to update you on progress of various income generating concepts that have been looked at over the past 10 months. Of particular interest to members will be the proposal for moving forward with a call for business interest, building on feedback from the Policy, Finance and Development Committee around undertaking more market research, and that's to repurpose the public toilets. Secondly, there are two income ideas that are proposed to be implemented: a community lottery, and members of the Business, Finance and Development Committee received a presentation yesterday evening and have recommended that community lottery scheme to council for approval. The other one is around a new events management approach with an income target attached, and again that was reviewed by the committee yesterday evening and recommended for approval.
Okay, Councillor Walter.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As opposed to the community lottery, yes, I know some councils do that round about us. It's an interesting concept. I think we need it for a year to see how it goes. But I'm concerned that the social impact of some of this, I think we ought to put a limit on how much somebody can spend a week on the lottery. I suggest a figure of no more than £5 a week. That way we can judge how things go, and we can perhaps have a report back from the company on a regular basis about how many people actually spend £5 a week, and then we can see where we're going to go from there in the future. Because a lot of problems are caused in the borough by people gambling money they haven't got, they should use on other things. I'm concerned we don't enter into that realms of problems that we're going to cause some of the poorer families in the borough who think they may well benefit from this, which we'll have to see how it goes at the end of the year.
Councillor Charlesworth.
Thank you, Your Worship. Again, I moved this last night and I'll move it again. I do understand Councillor Bolter's concern, but the structure of this, I think, has a 20%, 20p in the pound prize pot, which would suggest that you won't be investing in this to get rich quick. Most of the money goes to good causes. Some comes to the council and there's management fees, but the prize money is relatively insignificant in this. So I don't think anybody will be in it to win it.
Thank you, Your Worship. I think my comment is what is not in here. And I'd like to remind members that we do have a policy of selling car park passes. What is not there on here is any plans to increase the sales of them. I personally have been stopped in the street by people who have stopped coming into the town centre because they thought what we were charging is more than we can afford. But when I've told them about the bargains available by buying car parking passes, they were absolutely amazed. And I think it's unfair that there's this hidden secret from residents who haven't, certainly not on IT. So as part of the plan to increase income, can I see details of how we plan to advertise it or at least promote it? I'm not saying we should spend a small fortune on it or any money at all, but at least where the meters are, or at least somewhere on our notice board, please remind residents that it's only £25 a year to park in Oadby, and ways of getting the car parking passes. It's a scheme that we've all approved of. Now let's promote it. Thank you, Your Worship.
Anybody?
Can I just respond on that one? Thank you, Councillor Kaufman. The issue of the advertising of the car parking permits has been raised and it's currently in hand, and we are currently looking at providing stickers on all of the machines indicate the permits are available, and we're in consultation with the comms team to design an appropriate sticker.
Any more questions? Anyone
Who's
else?
Councillor Charlesworth?
Councillor Charlesworth.
Yeah, just a quick one on Councillor Catherine's point. I thought we'd agreed that the future letterbox, which is coming up for November, can carry out about the permits.
Councillor, anybody else? No. Councillor Charlesworth has moved this. Can we have a seconder, please?
Councillor Ridley.
Councillor Ridley, thank you.
So,
We'll now move on to, oh no, we need to put it to the vote. Any objections, or shall we have all those in favour? Unanimous, is it?
yeah, unanimous.
So we go down. Okay, we go to agenda item 12, budget setting approach. And again, Tracy, please.
So this report that's before you this evening is intended to engage you on how the council should set its budget next year. We've just reviewed the medium-term financial strategy, and now in the context of that and the financial challenges that the council faces both imminently and feedback is sought on the key principles put forward by me as the council section 151 officer, which are set out in paragraph 2.2 of the report. A special mention is the revised timetable, and you'll see that there's an additional Policy, Finance and Development Committee meeting in mid-November. This has been specifically set up to gather views on individual budget changes at a much earlier stage in the process. With that, I welcome any comments and feedback. Thank you.
Any questions? Councillor Boyce.
Thank you, Worship. Within the MTFS and within this as well, there is a view that we need to review the services. In many ways, we keep most under constant review anyway, but nonetheless, we need to review the services and look whether or not there are silo working, which we can also look at. Where does that fit into play?
So we're starting to mobilise the sustainability plan, which is part of the medium-term strategy. Linked with that are a number of themes in that sustainability plan, and one of them is around service reviews. I'll hand over to Philippa Fisher now, who will share a little bit more around the plans with that.
Thank you, Tracy. Councillor Boyce. Yes, one of the things that we are looking at, as you quite rightly say, is service reviews. One of the things we're focusing on is looking at the scope of those, how we can deliver them, bearing in mind that some of those service areas specifically have specialisms. So the recommendation is, and I mentioned it at the Policy, Finance and Development committee meeting last night, was that at the Service Delivery Committee, I would actually bring a report with the approach that we're going to take on our service reviews as a council.
Move the report.
Seconder?
Second.
Okay, it's been moved by Councillor Charlesworth and seconded by Councillor Hatch. All those in favour?
Unanimous. Yeah, unanimous. Yeah.
It's unanimous, is it? We'll now move on to agenda 13, draft land and building disposals policy. Disposal policy.
Thank you, Your Worship. The report introduces to members a draft policy for consideration which will rationalise the council's approach to land disposal via sale of the freehold or the grant of a long lease. The report contains various sections. Section 2 includes the legal basis on which land can be sold, and members' attention is drawn specifically to Section 9 of the draft policy that addresses the legal possession in respect of disposing of property via sale of the freehold or via a long lease at less than best consideration. Sections 9.9 and 9.10 of the draft policy set out the circumstances in which the council would be prepared to consider a lease at less than best consideration, subject to the voluntary or community sector organisations satisfactorily meeting the criteria set out in the Social Enterprise and Charities Checklist at Appendix F. I'm happy to take any questions on the report.
Got any questions?
Councillor Bolton.
Councillor Bolton.
Thank you, Mayor. Page 104, item 25.3 is just pointed out there's a little technical error there, but 25.3 is, yes, interesting. Number of spelling mistakes in the agendas as well, which stands out. It says here, where a surplus asset is not deemed to have an alternative potential use, a recommendation to the senior leadership team will be made to estimate the property as surplus to disposal. Sure, there should be some member input in that as well. Shouldn't be down to the senior leadership team. Surely the chairman of P&R should, or the leader should be involved in that as well. We make the final decision.
Thank you, Councillor Bolter. Actually, it's not a final decision. What that says is that there will be an identification of surplus land and underused property. So where we have a piece of land that is, for instance, being used by the depot, which they are no longer using, SLT will take a view whether it can be used by housing or some other part of the council. And if at that point there is no operational need for that piece of land, at that point it will be then deemed as surplus, and then the policy will be brought in. And as you see from the policy, there are certain limits on what will be put on the market and what won't be put on the market. So there will be member involvement.
Councillor Campbell.
Thank you. Page 109, I very much support this proposals. I'd like to mention 11.3, which talks about the reduction of unacceptable and significant impacts on neighbouring properties if we sell land. Also 11.5, where middle of the paragraph it says neither will the council contemplate sales which lead to distraction from of the visual quality of the surrounding areas. I very much support that, and I hope the council remembers that in the future. Thank you.
Anybody else? Councillor Boyce.
Thank you. Basically, I'll move the report. The report is required, not least of all, because we cannot expect officers to operate in a vacuum. Our role members is to set direction, is to set policy. This is a policy the officers can then refer back to help them manage our assets. Please, I move.
That's it. Any more questions? The proposer then?
Well, we've got Councillor Boyce proposed, but you need a seconder.
Seconded. Councillor Kaufman. Okay, thank you very much. Can we put it to the vote? All those in favour?
That's unanimous.
Unanimous. We move on now to agenda item 14, the UK Shared Prosperity Fund Local Partnership Group Formation.
Thank you, Your Worship. Members will be aware that the UK Shared Prosperity Fund is the successor to EDI funding, and the Opium Examiner Council has been awarded £1.3 million funding up until March 2025, subject to the agreement of an investment plan setting out how money will be spent. Our investment plan is currently under consideration by government. UK SPF projects have to fit under one or more of three different areas, these being communities and place, supporting local businesses, or people and skills. As projects need to reflect local challenges and opportunities, and many projects are still to be fully formed, a local partnership group needs to be set up to help shape delivery. Members can be drawn from a wide pool that's set out in paragraph 3.2 of the report. So as not to make the local partnership group unwieldy, it is proposed to split the group into two, one group for more development-based projects and the other for more support-based projects. The proposed membership of each group is set out in paragraph 3.6, and it is proposed that Place Shaping Working Group nominate a chair and that there will be opportunity for further member representation on each of the groups. It's recommended that members approve the membership of the local partnership group and also approval of any changes to the investment plan proposed by the local partnership group, subject to being compliant with the fund, be approved by the leader of the council in consultation with the strategic director, section 151 of this. If there's any questions, Peter.
Councillor Kaufman.
Thank you, Your Worship. Under background 1.1, UK SPF, I believe is a replacement for the EU structural funds. I'd like it explained to me, is it going to be like for like, now we've Brexited, or are we better off under the UK SPF fund, or worse off? I don't know whether it's a bit of a complicated question, but it would be really interesting to know. Thank you.
They're two totally separate schemes, so I don't think it's possible to compare one to the other. In terms of whether or not we're better off or worse off, it's probably worth bearing in mind that under the UK Shared Prosperity Fund, all councils in the country are awarded an element of funding. We've been awarded £1.3 million. That wouldn't necessarily have been the case, for example, under the RDF funding schemes, the EU funding scheme, when councils would have had to bid to be able to get a buy of that proportion of money. And not all councils were eligible to bid. So you'll be aware in the past that we have been able to bid for ERDF money for public realm schemes, but there were other ERDF funds that we weren't able to bid for.
Councillor Boyce. Oh, and then Councillor Bolter.
Thank you, Your Worship. The whole concept of UK SPF is rather strange to me. On one hand, it's a replacement for European money. European money was always targeted at the greatest need and the greatest return of money. So on that hand, UK SPF doesn't seem to completely make sense when you compare it with the government's agenda for levelling up. We got 1.3 million over 3 years. Our neighbours in Harborough got more than that, and clearly they need greater levelling up than we do, which makes no sense, because clearly they don't. So, while I like 1.3 million, I would never turn money down. I do think the logic of it is somewhat odd. On a more prosaic note, pages 138 and 139, the actual membership, it's rather difficult to see when you're asking us to agree to the membership, whereas there may be some negotiation. So perhaps that needs to be taken into account with some form of delegated authority to agree. From my own point of view, on page 139, 3.6.4, a Leicestershire County Councillor representative of the borough. I have no idea what that means. Does it mean a representative of the county council, or does that mean a borough councillor who is a county councillor? And if it does mean the second, they clearly are not a representative of the county council, because they were said they were put in because we decided that. And my question is, should the county actually put somebody on? I suspect not, because county are not the most helpful people in the world anyway. But that seems to not quite make sense. And then on the bottom one, the people from the skills, you've got Voluntary Action Leicestershire and Voluntary Action South Leicestershire, but you do not have the biggest local provider in the borough, which is Helping Hands. So I question that, and also the fact that you've got a county council representative again. I think we need to clarify that role, because I think there is a danger of the wrong person representing the wrong view and actually not being terribly helpful. Thank you.
Councillor Bolton, or did you want to respond, sorry?
Thank you, Your Worship. The second point first, in response in relation to Helping Hands, I think that's an excellent point, and I think that they should be added to the list of participants in the group. Just to clarify the point with regards to the county council involvement, and I think that there is some benefit from the county council having an opportunity in the group, and some benefit to us from them being involved. What we were keen to do, though, was to make sure that that representation is representation that comes from the borough, because they're borough groups. So the intention is that with your 2 points, Councillor Boyce, so it would be a county councillor who is a borough councillor as well. So a county councillor that comes from Whitby and Wixton borough.
Sorry to interject. That councillor nominated by who?
I would suggest that it should be nominated by members of this council, would be my suggestion. I would also suggest that your point about having delegated authority to change membership of the group or to have other members of the group would be really helpful, and that could perhaps be accommodated by adding to the second recommendation of the report.
Councillor Bolton.
And then Councillor Ridley.
Thank you, Mayor. Page 135, 1.2. Has been approved in late September, well, we can't get much later than this, and it knows up back at all.
No, there's no update as of now, I'm afraid.
Councillor Ridley.
Thank you, Your Worship. Just coming back to Mr Thorpe's answer to Councillor Boyce. I'm not quite sure I quite understood it. Is it a county councillor who's also a borough councillor, or is it a county councillor who happens to live in the borough? Can you just clarify?
I would suggest, but obviously it is up for members to agree, but I would suggest it should be a county councillor who lives in the borough of Wixton.
Thank you.
Chair, sorry, Your Worship, if I may. Can I suggest that part of the delegation of the third section would be that the chair of each of those brings forward a nomination of that county councillor to this council at an appropriate time.
Okay. We got any more questions? No.
I'm trying to read it.
Okay. Councillor Boyce.
Councillor Boyce has moved. Can we have a seconder, please?
Councillor Carter was first up.
Councillor Carter. Okay. And let's put it to the vote. All those in favour?
Unanimous.
Unanimous? Okay. And then this is a new one, isn't it?
We've got that one next.
Okay.
Yep.
We'll move on to the next item, which is agenda item 15, domestic abuse policies. Could we have Mr Thorpe to
Thank you, Your Worship. This report seeks member approval of the council's new domestic abuse policies. These policies will ensure that we provide a consistent and supportive service for anyone who is experiencing domestic abuse. The council is working as a consortium with other Leicestershire district councils to meet requirements to obtain the Domestic Abuse Housing Alliance accreditation in March 2023, and these policies are accreditation. The Domestic Abuse Housing Alliance mission is to improve and respond to domestic abuse through the influence of any questions?
Your Worship, can I just point out to members that this item is the agenda update item, which is on a separate paper or is on a separate part of the Moscow app.
Any more questions?
Any questions?
Any questions? No?
Move.
Okay, right, move back Councillor Charlesworth, move back Councillor Charlesworth. Have we got a seconder? Dr.
Councillor Corcoran.
Councillor Corcoran. Lost me completely. Yeah, can we put it to the vote, please? All those in favour? Yeah.
16. So,
Unanimous.
unanimous. Thank you.
I think several years ago.
Unanimous, yeah. So we're now on 16.
Okay. Agenda item 16, civic agreement update with Leicestershire universities.
Thank you, Your Worship. This report is brought before members for information to explain what the civic agreement involves, how it will impact the council, and what actions officers have taken to date. As members may be aware, as part of our collaboration with the University of Leicester, Oakham and Wixton Council were asked to support a civic agreement with the university and other Leicestershire universities. The civic agreement for Leicester, Leicestershire and Rutland combines the collective strengths of the county's universities and the civic institutions to make a greater impact by working together more closely with our communities. Members will see from the report that there are 5 key joint theme groups: education, the economy, health and wellbeing and sport, environmental sustainability, arts, culture and heritage. Through this agreement, it is hoped that synergies are established regarding how to support local communities and aid the prosperity of Leicestershire, including the borough of Oakham and Wixton. This will be delivered through a combination of aligning work that is already happening and supporting new joint initiatives. This work is currently in progress, with an action plan being created between the universities and the council. I'm happy to take questions.
David?
Thank you, Your Worship. As the councillor for the Grange Ward, I wholeheartedly welcome this initiative. We have a number of students that live in my ward. Around this period of time, they've come to join the university and start that odyssey of self-discovery. It sometimes involves a shopping trolley from Asda. But I just wanted to sort of point out that I want a strategic relationship between the university and our residents. I want our residents to be able to engage with the university, and there's some sort of a community hub there. We've got a gymnasium there. I know that a lot of the local residents have access to that gym. But I'd just like to also make sure that there's a strategic relationship between the community and the university, and then hopefully we can work wholeheartedly together. And I certainly welcome this initiative. Thank you very much.
Okay, anything else? Response? Anything else? Right.
The reports are noting, so.
Okay. No. Okay. Can we be noted for general information?
Agreed.
Okay.
Yep, that's fine.
That's all done. Right, yes.
No, it's
Okay, we're going on to agenda item 17, new vision for the council presentation by Mrs Fisher.
Thank you, Your Worship. The next item to bring before members is the work that has been conducted on the vision, which is following an LJ peer review that we done in 2022 this year. One of the recommendations from the peer review was to make sure that members led the vision for the next 10 years, and that vision would be supported by officers. You can go to the next slide. Perfect. Thank you. So what I'd like to do this evening is just to give some background and a status update as to where we are. Member engagement so far, members attended an LGA workshop. We had an officer and leader discussion to move the vision forward. We have shared the draft vision with members in various different communications, such as our members bulletin, and then members will obviously be aware that the draft vision was approved by members at full council on the 12th of July. Internally, as part of that vision and the draft vision being approved, exercises have been conducted around the vision mapping, vision implementation plan, and how we actually communicate that new vision. And the vision mapping is to ensure that the 5 new strategies that we have agreed, that members have agreed as part of the vision, can actually be implemented and supported by officers and the council internally. Following on from the draft vision being approved at full council on the 12th of July, we commenced a 6-week period of consultation, finishing at the end of August in 2022. This utilised all our online platforms. It delivered at residents' forums. So residents, businesses, our MP, key stakeholders and staff have all been consulted on the new vision that members have led. It is fair to say that the responses from residents have been minimal. However, the information received from residents and businesses will be fed into our new customer experience strategy. The recommendation is that members approve this vision so that it can be fully launched into the council and the borough. And I'm happy to take any questions.
Got any questions?
Councillor Coughlin?
Yeah. Your Worship, it's just the last comments that the consultation produced minimal results from the residents. Can you give us an indication of what minimal means? Because it may mean that we're not consulting in the right way. That's not my paper, but I may be wrong.
Certainly, Councillor Coughlin, we had 3 responses.
Councillor Coughlin?
Thank you, Your Worship. Talking about the minimal input, I'm wondering when the letterbox goes out, are you going to feature the vision within the letterbox so that you get more of an impact from the public? Maybe you will get a little bit more by then.
Councillor Coughlin, thank you for that. I think it's important to note that it's 2 paper communications that we agreed a year and not a letterbox, so it's not a magazine, but definitely part of the communication plan which I've talked about here will be putting that vision in that document.
Councillor
Thank you, Your Worship. I'm just going to recall when we had the last OB residents forum, and Philip, you were there, you presented to the residents, and the residents quite openly said that they felt that they hadn't been communicated with this. Now, I'm just wondering how was this communicated with the residents? Because 3 is not really a great number, and we need certainly a little bit more opinion on that to make this a bit more robust.
Thank you, Councillor Aaron. At that meeting, I mentioned that actually all the avenues that we could communicate with residents and businesses and stakeholders we have done. So it has been put on our website, on our consultation page. It's also been put as an actual specific page on the website. It has also been promoted on our social media platforms, and not only our main council social media platforms, but also the other sub-platforms that we utilise.
Thank you very much for that. There seems to be a bit of a problem with our communication. Our residents, for whatever reason, and some of them aren't social media savvy, they're just not getting the message from us as a council, and we've really got to take stock of that, and we've got to find out better ways in which we can get the message, an important message like this, to our residents, because for whatever reason, we're just not getting that engagement. So we need to be probably looking at our communication strategy a bit further then. Thank you.
Councillor, I appreciate it. Sorry, John.
Thank you, Your Worship. I have great sympathy with Councillor Allen and what he's saying. However, I think the problem we have is probably the wrong word. The Local Government Association has suggested we revisit the vision. And it actually is a revisit. Our borough and the various things that go with it have been around a long time. None of it is new. And in many ways, it's a restatement, and certainly at the level of vision, of many things we've been trying to do for years and will continue to try and do. So from that point of view, I think part of the problem is there's very little to say about it, other than I agree, in which case it's not worth the effort to say I agree. I think where we would have a problem is if this was the response to a plan, to a proposal which had meaningful outcomes. And I think that would be a real problem. So I think in this instance, we've done what the LGA has asked us. We've reaffirmed the vision. We've put some nice words on a bit of paper. The actual intent has not changed. We still want to be a place where people want to live. We still want to be a place where people want to work. And we still want to be a place where people want to visit. And no matter what order you put those words in, that has been the vision, certainly from this party, for many, many years. And I suspect it will be the vision for this borough for many years to come. So can I thank Philippa for doing the work and move the report?
Anybody else?
Councillor Hack.
Thank you, Your Worship. I agree with Councillor that people tend to respond to a plan. But in future, as well as advertising on social media, if we are doing any workshops, like probably what Philippa did, I wasn't at OB Forum, to the resident forum, could we have some paperwork taken there or some kind of forms that people can fill in, or do other surgeries that with community groups and places of worship regarding our vision, so that way we can get much more engagement with the resident. Thank you.
Councillor Hack, that's noted, and yes, we can take that forward.
Have we got anything? Nobody more? Nobody else? Okay, can we be noted then for general affirmation?
Agreed.
Okay. Okay, we have an emergency item, the leisure centre contract update. Under section 100B 4B of the Local Government Act 1972, I consider that by reason of special circumstances, in that the additional item of business needs to be considered before the next meeting of this council, I am of the opinion that an emergency item of business regarding the council's leisure centre contract should be considered at this meeting as a matter of urgency. I am of this opinion as the contract in question requires affirmative action to be taken by officers by the 1st of October 2022 under a delegated authority which can only be resolved by full council. Furthermore, I move that under section 100A(4) of the Local Government Act 1972, the press and public be excluded from the remainder of the meeting on the grounds the emergency item of business to be transacted involves the disclosure of exempt information as defined in Part 1 of Schedule 12A of the Act, as amended, and, in the circumstances, the public interest in maintaining the exempt items outweighs the public interest in disclosing the exempt information. It has been moved by myself.
We need a second.
Yeah, can we have a seconder, please?
Second.
Councillor Kaufman, right. It has been moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Kaufman that the press and public be excluded for the remainder of the meeting.
All those in favour?
All those in favour?
Unanimous.
Okay, unanimous. Thank you. And the,
Yeah.
right.